because let's say you have a photo and then you print it and then you show it in a gallery. That's it. Like that's the experience of it. You can write a text about it. You can talk about it with other people, and that maybe that nurtures the experience. But in a digital space, you have like the materiality of the image itself or whatever artwork becomes like so vast. It's just like it's not limited to a single form. It can be like so many more things. You can extract data from an image. You can like create a space with it. You can create an atmosphere. You can code the light with it. You can like extend it so it becomes a whole map. It's just like it's so rich potentially, and that I'm so looking forward to it.
Hello everyone, and welcome yet to another episode of NewForum. NewForum is powered by NewCoin Foundation and is focused on fostering decentralized social applications, also known as Social 3.0, by forming an ecosystem and a community of visionaries, creators, and investors. It provides a safe space for thinkers to communicate, inform, and share ideas in order to ensure the conscious and ethical growth of a new web, embedding the values of care, freedom, and creativity.
And as always, we have a very special guest in today's episode, Loucas Braconnier, also known as Figure 31. Figure 31 functions as Loucas's digital persona. He first studied photography, then moved on to cinema and media studies to finally end up with a BA in visual arts and media. The visual and conceptual body of work presented by Figure 31 questions the ever-evolving relationship between reality and technology, supported by different computer-generated images, photographs, sculptures, tests, and virtual spaces. All artwork is first created on-chain and is available for anyone with an internet connection. We're going to talk with Figure about his work, artists, and curation in Web 3.0 and what he thinks could be changing in Web 3.0. Hi, Figure. We're quite excited to have you on today's episode.
Hi.
So I'm pretty curious, who is Figure? What are you representing in the Web 3.0 space?
I'm basically just a multimedia artist, and I happen to be working with blockchain right now. So in the past, I've worked with print, with video, with photography, with sculpture, installation. But right now, my main medium is the blockchain. When I finished my study in university, the pandemic began, and everything I was working on got canceled. I couldn't like apply to any gallery or any artist centers or like museum, whatever. So basically I just did the transition to digital art fully. It's not what I wanted to do at first, but it's what I'm doing right now. And I'm mostly interested in questions related to like images, what's our relationship and what we can do with them to further our understanding of technology.
So it's interesting that you say that, through the pandemic and everything that happened got you to transition into the digital space, right? And so I'm wondering, how did that impact your work, or how would your work have been different if you didn't move into this space? I'm curious to know.
I used to do like really, really large scale installation with like, I guess, sand and some really big prints and just like very, like trying to like populate the space of the exhibition as much as I could. And when you're working digitally, it's like right now, the way we consume artwork is mostly like on a desktop or an iPhone. So it's like, it's a very simple interface and it's a very different relationship to an artwork. Whereas you're walking in a white cube or you're walking outside in a field and there's some sculptures laying there and you're not going to see an object, the object is coming to see you, and that's a very different like interpretation of what an artwork is and what you can communicate with it as an artist. And I find that it's mostly good for conceptual works or for conceptual processes, because like, when you're sitting in front of your computer, you're mostly like in a position similar to how you're working every day. So that's very coded in terms of like language and communication. So it's mostly that difference. It's like you're on the desktop and I'm working also on the desktop as an artist, and that's like the basis of how I work right now.
What do you think has changed for the daily artist making his work now in terms of like inspiration? Like, where do you draw your inspiration from now, and what do you care about when we're making your art?
Well, since we can be in the space with like our bodies and actually like creating a relationship with an artwork, it mostly appeals to the mind and to like the intellect of like I don't want to say the consumers because it's not the right word for art, but it's just like the viewers in general. And when you're communicating with an audience in this space, it's very, very different. And I think that's like the main thing. And what interests me right now, I guess it's just like we see so many images every day just because of the nature of social media, the nature of how we work, we use technology all the time. And I'm wondering like, how does it changes us as humans, and how does it changes the way we interpret like the rest of the world? And these days, you know, we tend to make the difference between like the real space and like the digital space. That's something I hear a lot from like other traders in the space, other people. We say like IRL, so in real life, but like in real life now is the digital space also, because like we spend so much time on our screens, and like the space that the screens fills and the time we spend on it is like probably as equivalent as the time and the space that we use and well we live in right now. So I guess this is like really the core of it. It's just like we spend so much time on it, we see so many things, and that for sure has like an impact on us. And as artists, like you said before, it would mostly be like social gatherings and etc. But since the pandemic, all that died, and from this in Montreal, the city I'm in, like the art scene pretty much like it got beaten down. Like it doesn't exist anymore. Like it's starting to come back to life, but like all the music scene, the fashion scene, the design, everything, it's just like everything switched to Instagram, to Twitter, to like other forms of social media. And that's for like all the good things that it brought, it also like coded a lot our like different interaction with each other, and mostly with images and like our notion of perception.
Right. I think about this like attention span that we have now when we look at art or look at images, like we see and next day is the next pic. And you know, it's like when you had the Mona Lisa, or you had like things like you have these big artists who made amazing work, or architecture, you know, it's a different kind of interaction, I feel like. But there's also a lot of positives. For example, you can meet people from all around the world now that everyone is moving there, you know, into the digital space. And as well as technology can influence the art itself as well, like different mediums and things like that are very interesting.
Yeah, and what you said about like what does it bring more versus like the physical relationship to artwork is like when you're showing something digitally, you can show a lot of details. You can go into like different point of view that you won't have when you're like in the space. And like I personally work with images, and I'm from a background in photography, so like the quality of images is very important. And when you're like printing something or like showing it on a projector, etc., there's all these different layers that sort of destroy the original idea or the original material you're working with. So like being able to communicate directly to an audience with like a very simple screen, and knowing that like the colors and like the format and etc. is going to be like pretty similar to what you see as an artist. That's kind of unique in itself. And I think it's quite like, it's a challenge, but it's also a good thing.
Yeah, that's great points. I think that also it affects like the process in terms of like previously you were using more like physical materials, you know, and then you have to buy more things, but now it kind of like it's reduced everything to just like your laptop and just
it's kind of a sad truth, but you know, you get used to it and you find ways to be creative inside that space. But it's been a weird transition, that's for sure. Like coming from a studio and just walking around in school, walking around in different like workshops and etc., talking to different technicians. And now it's like I work with devs, and I work with like other people in doing web design and doing like code for the smart contracts and etc. And that's a very different relationship, and it feels much more similar to how like a design studio could work or operate, in my opinion. Yeah.
It's very simplified. So will you ever kind of get back to the physical creation of work?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think it's going to be quite important for the space of like, I don't want to say the word NFT, but like, yeah, NFTs are like on-chain art, blockchain art, however you call it, to like find a way to exist in the real world also, and to like transfer not only from like a digital standpoint, but to a physical standpoint, and to like find a way to somehow relate like both worlds, and like having an artwork that exists in both. I think it's going to be very important in the future. And I'm looking forward to developing things on that end.
Sounds awesome. So we know that Web3 possibilities have a lot of benefits for creators, for artists, but we're curious to know if it's something that you think it's something that will enhance the artist as an individual, or perhaps the artist joining a DAO might be a better option. What do you think?
Let's say like 2 years ago, all my artist friends and like people in the space were in Montreal, we're in the same city. I had some friends, like let's say in Europe, maybe it was very small amount of people, but sorry about the cat. But right now, you can communicate with someone like across the world, and it's basically just a chat, and it's very simple, and it offers like a lot of like possible connection to different people and to different opinions and to different like ways of seeing and ways of working, and it's like, this is just so rich and so precious right now. And like, it's absolutely crazy how like the blockchain space and crypto in general is so open to new ideas and to people supporting each other. And the amount of support I've received from like people I've never met, I don't even know their name, and I've been able to contact them, and then contacted me, we've chatted, they collected my artwork, I collected some of theirs, etc. It's incredibly open. And that's like to me, it's the best thing about Web3, the enthusiasm of like meeting new people and being able to communicate and to work and to collaborate. That's just like the best thing for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of like boundless, you know, like people are very, like every time we meet someone, the guests here, they are very open-minded. There's people from all around the world really looking forward to this revolutionary technology and using it in different ways, you know, even NFTs, like we have gamers on, we have artists on, we have people who work in science on, and it's like, it's super incredible to hear these stories. And yeah, I'm wondering also, maybe could you briefly explain like what NFTs really enable for artists? Like you explained that you're now working with devs, you know, that's really different when you think about back then the artist would have like a gallerist, or you know, that it was really like a high barrier to entry. And also now it seems like the artists become more like rounded, like they know a bit of this, they know a bit of this, and they work with different people, so they kind of have more like a business mindset, I guess. So maybe can you explain what NFTs enable for artists?
Yeah, so what does NFT enable for artists? I think mostly it's like new ways of managing your, like generally speaking, your work and like everything surrounding your and basically the trend of being an entrepreneur and an artist at the same time started, I guess, like 10-20 years ago, but it really changed now, and your artists are more ever in control of their like digital persona and like their artist persona at the end of it right now, and you can like be much more creative with it right now, and you have much more impact with it. So you don't necessarily have a gallerist who control your image. You don't necessarily like have, I don't know, like collectors that are very, I mean, they're selected by the galleries, and you know who they are, and there are only a certain amount of people that are permitted to buy your work, and etc. The hierarchy is kind of broken, but it doesn't mean that there's not a new one that exists, given the fact that like there's a lot of rich people in this blockchain space that were simply here like early, and that doesn't make like this person smart or like with good taste or like with good intention. Simply mean that it has a lot of capital to spend on artwork. And it's like, it's a bit redundant, but we've seen this quite often in the space. A lot of people say it's mostly the same people buying the same artworks. So it's like this click of people, and they're just like shifting from one project to another. And that's partly true, but there's also like a lot of new people coming in. And once you sort of recognize like how the space is structured, because it's not as if there's no structure at all in the blockchain art space. So there is a new one, there is a hierarchy, there is an order, but it's so much more open than like what we used to have in the art world. And when the pandemic started, literally all my teachers in art school told me that they were happy that like some form of like cataclysmic event would like probably change the space and would change the market for them. But like, that's good if you're an established artist, but if you're a new artist coming in the space, you're pretty much fucked.
I hear a lot of like, especially like, you know, emerging talents talk about stuff like that, that most of these feel like most of these NFT platforms are not fully decentralized. And you know, so it's like partially decentralized. What do you think about that? Do you have any thoughts? Have you experienced anything like that, that specific artists are like chosen or picked? I mean, I'm not really sure how the process works, but I don't know if it's part of the curation or it's just some sort of a bias situation. If you can touch on that, would be great.
I'm not exactly familiar with like platforms like foundation work, for example, where you get an invite and then you have to be selected, because like if you're not the invite, you can't go on the platform. If you can go on the platform, you go into like lower tier platform. So like it's a different audience, a different market, it's different people buying there, it's different budget, etc. But like the great thing about like these platforms and the fact that we're on the blockchain is that you can, as an artist, be totally independent from these platforms. And it's personally the way I've chosen to work so far, which is like, yes, you can mint something in OpenSea, it won't cost you anything, but it won't be like a good quality NFT in terms of like storage and metadata. You can work on Foundation, it's a bit better. They're super rare. There's like a ton of other platforms like that are on invitation or not. But you can simply interact with the blockchain and upload your smart contract and like create something custom and like work with people around you and collaborate with devs to create something unique. And you don't have to rely on anyone. You don't need a gallery to support you. You don't need a space to exist. You simply need to push code, which is like so simple and so powerful for many artists. But I think the collaborative nature of how the space works is very important for artists. But you can also go into like a totally individual and personal route, and that's pretty fine in my opinion also. But it's for sure the barrier of entry is like, it's either nothing or like there is some of it through like you have to get an invitation. But other than that, I think it's pretty easy.
Right. Yeah, I was wondering yesterday, I tried to join this DAO and it was actually like quite expensive to join just to sign up, and they wanted my passport and they wanted my wallet and they wanted me to pay, and I was like, yeah, sure, but what if I just want to meet you guys first, or like, I'm really see the value in what you're doing, but I don't want to give my passport out right now. Like, I don't know what they're doing with this information, but I was just like, that's a bit like odd. Like my friend was explaining it to me, like how she sees it. It's like kind of investing into their project, but I was like, yeah, but I don't know. I see, like you said, the same structures kind of repeating in some way. And I'm wondering, what do you personally think about these like NFTs that are coming out now? We see a lot of like comic-ish arts, kind of, if you want to say it like that, but it's more, I think, the NFTs that are out, and some
it's PFPs basically, profile picture project.
Yeah, exactly. I'm wondering, like, you as an artist, when you saw that, like, what were your thoughts? Like, what do you think about the space, and where will it go eventually? What do you think?
Blockchain is just a medium. So like, just like a piece of paper can mean something very different, it can be used to very different things to different artists. I think like that's the way I approach it. Like there's some artists that are doing great things. There are some people that are more into entertainment. There are some people who are simply interested in illustration, and like that's all fine. Like it's just like a giant space, and it's a big meltpot of like different people with different intention, and it's really up to the artist to decide what they want to do with it and live up to their own standards and to the standards of art history, or not at all. They can be doing just like cartoonish thing, and to me it doesn't like step on my on the space in which I evolve, like in blockchain art. It's just like, it's a different side of the market. For sure, it does like tend to like get, in my opinion, too much attention, because like there are so many interesting things. And when people from outside the space, like from traditional art, talk to me about NFTs, like the first thing they think about is like CryptoPunks or like Bored Apes or something like that. And that's kind of annoying, to be quite honest. I don't like this idea that like people associated me with those things, but it's part of the space. And like the simple fact of maybe participating sometimes in those like different projects, or like simply hanging around or trying to buy one, being on a whitelist, etc., is an experience on its own. And it's like, it's like a learning experience. And even if like we pretend that we're making art as artists or whatever, like we can't totally ignore this other side of the space. So it's good to be informed about it and to like know how you're different from that, for sure. But for like, on the other side, I think like the DAOs that are starting to emerge right now, there's a lot of like social DAO, like collector DAO and like curator DAO, etc. The thing I might ask to like these people creating all of these new DAOs is like, artists used to like collaborate and to assemble themselves like way before DAO existed. And like there are so many informal social circles out there, like simply on like crypto Twitter and like Telegram groups, etc. And like most of the time you don't necessarily need hierarchy administration to like simply work together. And I think like that's quite important. But for sure, DAO do bring on like a lot of like potential power and utility to the space if they're like well made. But if it's simply to administrate people and to like just create like a fake hierarchy out of nowhere, I think like might question their intention. But right now we're seeing so many like pop up everywhere. So eventually it'll sort out itself, I think. It'll look better and like some project will remain like relevant. But right now we're just like in discover mode. So I guess it's fine to do like whatever we want and just to explore like different options. And like probably the people that are involved in some DAO right now might just start one of their own like in a year or so. They just like might quit it and do something else. And there might be like a whole new selection of DAOs that's going to be available to newcomers in the space in the like upcoming months, years. Like it's so hard to tell because we tend to feel like this space has been here for like 10 plus years. But NFTs and blockchain art like really started to go mainstream about a year ago. There was other artists who used to work with blockchain as a medium before that, but like the market was so small before. And like it's barely even be a year that this trend has started. So we have to be patient with it, I think, and to allow different forms of expression to emerge through that.
Right. It's quite exciting thinking about you living through this transition. Like, you know, you look back at history and when they had like printing the books and everyone was like, oh my God, no, like you can't, or like television, and oh my God, when the internet came around, and it's like you're living through like a really big change in like the way we communicate and the way we do things. So it's kind of exciting, I think.
Yeah, I was actually watching, was it like an old video from when the internet sort of like arrived, you know, and some of the questions and the process and the processing and the questions you're going through reminds me of some of the conversations we're having now, you know, because they were like, oh, we don't know where this is going, but it's already solving this problem and that problem, and what is this again, and what is that again, and it sounds like the same thing we're doing, but eventually we will see where it's gonna reach. And I wanted to say I really admire that you've sort of like found your own it's like your own way of expressing yourself within this space and not following trends. And I think that one of the things I struggle with personally is this idea of trends, you know, and how our generation, like everybody just, something is working and everybody just follows it without thinking, and it's this like hype effect happening in the crypto space as well, and with NFTs. And I get worried, and I like that, you know, you have a traditional art background. I do as well, and I really like that you're standing firm in what you believe in and your value, and you're putting out the work that you believe in, you know, and not just making changes just to fit in. And so that's really good. And it's really great to have that diversity in the space, because that's how we're going to attract more artists to come in, you know. And so this is really great. And so I'm wondering, like, what we've been talking a lot about the digital space, Web3 space. So I'm curious to know if you've thought about the metaverse and how it's going to impact your work, and, you know, back to this idea of trends. How do you find how are you going to define yourself in that?
I'm so looking forward to like when the metaverse will actually like be a usable thing, because right now it's mostly an idea. There's like some project that exists, but it's like limited to gaming and like digital terraforming. It's just like collectibles and etc. But like think about it, if like you can experience an artwork digitally, why should it be limited to a 2D space? Like it could be 3D, could be 4D, could be whatever. And just like the richness of that experience when like AR and VR is going to be much more on point, and like when we're going to be able to like, I don't know, walk around in 3D space much more easily. We can do it with games right now. There's no problem. There's so much work behind those games. And like when it's going to be accessible for anyone to build like a digital space and just like invite people in, and especially for artists, it's going to allow for so many like new ways to experience artworks. And I think that's like, I don't want to say like I have specific ideas in mind for these things, because like it's probably going to be up to the artist to decide. And it's just like it's not even there yet. So there's no way for me to say like it's going to be like that or whatever. But I'm really, really looking forward to that, and to just like, because let's say you have a photo and then you print it and then you show it in a gallery. That's it. Like that's the experience of it. You can write a text about it. You can talk about it with other people, and that maybe that nurtures the experience. But in a digital space, you have like the materiality of the image itself or whatever artwork becomes like so vast. It's just like it's not limited to a single form. It can be like so many more things. You can extract data from an image. You can like create a space with it. You can create an atmosphere. You can code the light with it. You can like extend it so it becomes a whole map. It's just like it's so rich potentially, and that I'm so looking forward to it. And right now, like I think we've talked about it beforehand, but like the possibility right now around galleries for NFTs and blockchain art is mostly limited to like you find a couple of artworks you like assemble it on a page, and then you share that page, and like that's cool. Like it's a first step in the right direction in my opinion, but there's potentially so much more in like creating digital exhibition. And but I think we're just like missing the right tools to experience these things, because let's be honest, like experiencing a digital exhibition on a phone is not that much of like a rich experience, like in terms of physicality and like emotion, etc. And before the pandemic, I was looking at like at statistics on like what do people like to see online related to art content. And then the very end of like the thing that got like the less, I guess, views or like the less visits were like digital exhibition. People were even more interested in listening to collectors and listening to live auction than actually visiting digital exhibition. So that's like a big problem for the artwork. And I just wish like we as artists and like collectors and curators, and I mean anyone involved in that space, we can find solution to that, to like really imagine new ways of like experiencing artworks.
Thinking about it, when I want to see something, or I might listen to a podcast first, I might choose a different medium of experiencing something than the visual. And that's a really important point I think you brought up, that there's the user experience is not great at the moment. I've been myself in a virtual gallery and I had no bottom, and I was just like, what is going on here? And yeah, but I think, like you said, there's so much potential. And also you don't have to bring your canvases, like ship them around the world or anything, like I mean, there's a lot of energy used in the space, but you can save like time, and you can save, these like physical things if you want to have it digitally.
Yeah, and I used to do a lot of painting and drawings, and it's like you get like and of course with sculpture, it's like you have so many things around you as an artist. Like you just have like stuff all over the place, and it's very like it's a bit of a tornado in your studio. Like I've rarely seen like an artist studio that is clean, and there's a reason for that. Not because we're like messy, it's just like the nature of the work is messy itself, and it's very hard to keep it clean and without being too like formal or materialistic, or I don't know. But now it's like it's just a file on the computer, and like as weak as it is, it's also extremely strong. So like you can just share it to anyone, and then people can experience it in its like true nature, and like it's very simple, it's very powerful, and you can do many more things with it. So I'm quite happy to see how this would evolve. And also like, let's say I don't know, I'm interested in Frank Stella, like a painter from the 60s, but I can't own a Frank Stella. I can't go see a Frank Stella like right now if I wanted to. I'm in Montreal. There's no Frank Stella exposed in Montreal right now. But if he was a digital artist, I could go and see the artwork. I could download it. I could rework it in different ways. I could analyze it. I could extract data. I could look at his whole body of work. And that's a very powerful thing for like new artists, to like being able to work so closely with the work of like other like interesting people and potentially masters.
Yeah, totally. I think it's pretty amazing. And when you were talking about, you used the word tornado in like an artist space, and I was thinking like I kind of stopped designing for some time because my apartment was starting to look that way, and having to clean up after designing, it was just too much for me. So I'm like, I'm not going to design for some time because I'd rather keep the space clean. However, yeah, it's really limiting. So I think like being able to work, having that option to create digitally is really powerful and really brilliant. And it opens up like a new space when it comes to exhibition, collaboration. And I think that's fabulous. But we cannot also deny the fact that we're physical beings. And so as much as the internet is gaining a lot of value and we want to own property on the internet as much as we do in the real world, because in the real world, we own our stuff, right? We want that same value on the internet, but I think that there's gonna be some sort of a balance between those two worlds. I'm not sure how it's gonna look like, but I'm really excited to see how it turns out in the future.
And also like the materiality of an artwork, like in the physical space, it's very important to our relationship with like things and how we understand ourselves and how we understand the space that is being shaped by the artwork, or like what it communicates to us. So like, I mean, just from a let's say a vernissage experience. So when you go to a vernissage for like an exhibition, it's like you get to talk to people and etc. And then it lasts one night. Like you get to meet the people, you see them, you feel their presence, you feel the artwork, and like it's an interaction and it's live. But like when you do like a drop, like an NFT drop, or like a project release, like digitally, it's basically just like notification that pops up on your feed. And this is like, there's like no materiality, there's no presence, and there's no like feeling of body, there's no like communication, no sensuality, there's nothing. It's just like a screen screaming at you. And it's like, it makes no noise. It's just like a data feed. And that yeah, there are some things missing right now in the space, and we can't forever rely on like hype cycles and just like following trends, like you said before. And like the space relies so much on Discord and Twitter right now for everything blockchain art, and like we somehow like were able to create a space in those like platform, and that's a good thing. But it's also like we're depending on like private servers hosted somewhere on like private lands belonging to a private company, and that's just like, it feels problematic if like the whole point of like blockchain is being decentralized and like owned by the people and etc. And then we rely on like these private owned technology. It's just like, and also like it could be fun if like a project wouldn't be, I guess, looked at and being like if people would judge the quality of it according to like the number of likes it gets on Twitter, which is, you know, it's a bit cynical in itself. And it won't last, like it can't last. This model of like being popular on Twitter, I don't believe that it can last forever. We have to find new ways to communicate with each other and like new ways to show our work and for people to discover them. And like whenever I talk to people outside the space or like new artists trying to get in, it's like the first thing they ask me is like, where the hell do I start? I don't understand this. Or like, do I have to be on Twitter? And I kind of say to them like, well, if you're not on Twitter, I mean, I don't know like how you're going to follow the space. Which is like, it's cool, but it's a problem of its own also. Because like, I mean, I'm not going to be here to talk about like the problems of social media. Everyone knows them, of course. And there are good things, there are bad things coming from them. But it feels like in discontinuity with like the ethos, like the core ethos of what we're working on more deeply.
It's also crazy to think, like you just mentioned, you know, back then when you had a favorite artist, you didn't just go and give him a like, or, you know, you can give him a like or a follow or like a comment. And now it's kind of like you can have low-key this intimate relationship with an artist, and then you might find it was more distant, you know, between the subject and the art and the artist and the viewer, you know. Yeah. And now it's like all, like you said, scrammed on Discord or scrammed on Twitter. And I hope that we find ways to really follow this decentralization and build our own, whatever that might look like, metaverse spaces or art gallery spaces online. And yeah, it's a tricky one, definitely. Back to like the traditional artists, you know, they obviously, I always think about people like Basquiat or Andy Warhol, who, what would they have been doing if they would be exposed to this kind of technology, you know? And what do you think is going to change with blockchain? How artists going to collaborate and also exhibit? Like, are you going to just a potential lookout in the future, are they gonna go to the gallery and plug in their wallet or go give them like, you know, like how is it gonna, what do you think, like how is it gonna look like?
Yeah, you just transfer the artwork to the gallery like simply just like that. I don't know. I don't think like we just can quite know like what's going to be the future structure of this like digital, like I guess like workspace or art space or art market, but like the idea that every artwork can come from an artist and you can actually trace it, that's very powerful, of course. And like there's no like ambiguity if like this work is from this artist or not. There's like provenance is assured, and that's cool. But in terms of like how we work, I think we're going to see so many more collaboration. And of course, like due to the fact that like if you want to upload this to a smart contract in Ethereum, it costs like quite a lot of gas to do it. So you tend to like not only do one artwork when you're uploading a smart contract, you tend to do like a full collection, a series, and etc. And this might change like the cost related to gas, but right now that's how it is. And like the series aspect is like very interesting, like working in like series and collection. I think that's like an heritage that we have from like, I guess a bit from conceptual art, that's for sure, and like pop art. And if I like to imagine like Andy Warhol working with blockchain. I did this like a couple of times in my head. I think it would be like super stoked to be working with blockchain because he loved to like just like mass production of artworks and like being able to share like a commodity and an artwork at the same time. It's just like, I think a lot of artists would have been from conceptual artists and like maybe contemporary artists that are dead now would have been like so happy to be able to work with blockchain because just like the proliferation of artwork is just like exponential blockchain. You can like share so much, you can sell so much, you can connect so much, and you can collaborate much more easily, and you have a trace of everything. And like what we said before is true also. You can share these artwork and everyone can see them so easily. This is like, there are so many artworks from like very famous artists that are hidden in private collection that you simply cannot see because like the collectors want to keep it private or whatever the reason. And now like you can't really hide much on the blockchain. I guess you could like mint something in secret and then sell it to someone from like a top secret, like shadowy dev type of address. But yeah, it's like the public nature of it and like the openness of it all is so new and so refreshing for like the art world and like the collaborative aspect.
Yeah, and I quickly want to add to that because you just brought me on a thought. Like Andy was actually doing that with his work back then, but not on the blockchain, but he was reprinting all this stuff. And I'm like, damn, that's so interesting. What would have he done? And also back then a lot of art got lost, when there was war or anything, a lot of art and got lost, and then these assets might just went to anybody or to the next biggest collector. And now you have proof, okay, this is the code, like it's all based on code. If we find a piece, if we find this thing on a smart contract, it's traceable. There's proof that it comes from somewhere, and you cannot just steal art. There's another conversation with that, but I don't want to open that right now. But in effect, even if you are like a oil painter, you can say, okay, I'm going to make an NFT out of this, and someone in the future is going to know this is going to be mine, or whoever this belongs to then.
Yeah, and I think like the fact that everything is locked in, it's going to be here forever, is like, it's very reassuring, but it's also quite scary for an artist. I'm thinking about like John Baldessari, if I remember correctly. He did like the cookies pieces, which basically it just burned like all of his previous artworks and made cookies like from the ashes out of them. And when you think about it, it's kind of cool to say like, yeah, I don't want to do what I did before, and I just want to like erase everything and like go to do something new, and like I want to destroy all my previous artworks and etc. And like right now you can't really do this on chain. So like you can burn your piece, but it still exists somewhere and still logged in as like you created it with your address. Of course you can change an address and etc. But yeah, like the trace is like a good thing for collectors and like for the history of things, but like from an artist perspective, sometimes you want to start anew, and that's quite important. And also like the proliferation side, like people tend to quote Andy Warhol and like pop art, and like it's very popular with the general public, pop art, maybe because of the colors and like the visual language, etc. But pop art in itself is kind of dark from like studying it, and like it is a big critique of our like relationship to like things and to objects and to like commodities and to like capitalism and etc. And yeah, maybe like this like critique somehow like shines again inside blockchain art. That's for sure. There's so much cynicism about this space and about like inside the artworks, and artists like I think right now in the blockchain space are very conscious that like we know like maybe this is a big bubble and etc. I doubt it is, like for sure. Maybe just like a succession of small bubble. That may be the thing it is. But we know there's like so many contradiction right now with the medium we're working with, and that's a good and a bad thing. So it's not, it's just like we're still defining what this is. So we have to be patient with ourselves and like with newcomers and with critiques and etc.
I don't think I ever thought about the fact that an artist might want to, clear everything out and then like start all over. Is not a concept that hit me, but that is very true. Like sometimes when we're actually physically making things, we're like, oh, I hate this, I want to dump it away and redo it. And you don't really have that option. But maybe as the technology sort of evolves, we will get to a point where, I don't know, maybe there's some sort of a possibility for that to happen. And I'm also curious to know, like, how has like Web3 and all these amazing new technologies changed this idea of creativity, because creativity can be defined in so many ways, I guess, but I feel like with these new technologies, it's probably changed it a lot for artists, the way you design, the way you think, design process and all of this. So any thoughts on that? How has it changed it for you? And do we still have like the same appreciation and evaluation for art?
I don't think it has changed because it's just a new medium. There's been so many new medium in the history of art, and like if we go back to Renaissance and like how painting changed back then, or like to the modern era, how like paint tubes were like a big technological innovation, which seems like kind of silly today to think about it. That don't have to crush your own pigments and like do everything in the studio, and you can like go outside and paint nature or whatever. It's like, I don't think that, like, we artists work very slowly compared to like the new emergence of technology and how it spreads out. So like we get ideas very quickly, but like the realization of an idea of like an artwork takes so much time. And often I realize that like you have something you want to work on and you think like, oh, I'll get it done in 2 weeks, like no problem. And then it's been like 6 months and then you're like, yeah, okay, I might still need a bit of time to think about it and whatever. And that's like, it's not so much that artists are lazy, it's just that it takes time to reflect and to create. And like, of course you can just like print work like out there, you can just like go on OpenSea and then mint like something every day, like that's fine. That's, some people do that, like a song every day, or like a Beeple style, like an artwork every day, that's cool. But if you're trying to like have a dialogue with art history, like with other artists, it takes time to like really structure your work and like think about your ideas. And like you often like in the process of that, simply like waiting, you find so many new things. And like it's very challenging to like to work in like such a fast-paced environment. And I think like, but I don't think that the process and like the creative workflow of artists changed that much like with this new thing, because like we've been working like this forever, basically, like being like an independent entrepreneur in a way, and just like having to do stuff on your own. And like it's a very lonesome practice, but right now it's like the collaborative aspect is shining a lot, and that I think is really good. And you can be like codependent on others. So like personally, like I take a lot of inspiration from like painters who work alone all their life, and like simply you can like, the idea of painting is really cool because it's super simple. You just paint something, you put it in the gallery, and then someone buys it, and that's it. And then you can keep on working like that all your life. Like right now with blockchain, I'm a photographer. I know like conceptually like how the blockchain works, but I can absolutely not code like that's for sure. I tried it and it's like, it's been a total like, it's been chaotic. Like I'm not going to try to do it. So I have to work with other people. So you have to find these people, you have to convince them. Then you have to like, this is a work relationship, and it's like, okay, I have an idea, but we have to make it true. And like the language of the blockchain, like Solidity, it's kind of limiting. So like if you have an idea, you have to adapt it to the blockchain, then you have to mint it. And then it's like, there's so many like aspects colliding to like actually mint an artwork on chain, other than simply like going on OpenSea, on Foundation or Super Rare and then like minting it. So yeah, it takes time, and that's okay, I think.
How do you find these people, like these developers?
Yeah.
And because you mentioned you have to convince them. So I'm wondering, are these like people from your school, or you just gonna do the research online? How did you find them?
Yeah, this is something I get asked quite a lot from like artists outside, like they want to come in. It's like, how do I mint something, and how do I find people to work with? So like, well, you can go in a platform and do something easy, but if you want to do like a dynamic on-chain artwork that like actually uses the medium and express like the true nature of it and tries to like be, I don't know, to like confuse the buyer, like whatever you're trying to do, and it's dynamic and it's related to how on-chain stuff works, you're gonna have to find like very good people who understand these things also. And I guess there's no like one way to do it. It's just like you get out there, you talk to people, you just like cold DMs people, you just comment on their people's stuff, and eventually like you come to people and eventually they come to you, and that's kind of cool. But like there's a lot of luck, and it's like, I guess simply being there right now and just exposing yourself as an artist to the space is enough to like make connection into it. It's very rewarding simply being here. And I don't mean rewarding like financially and getting airdrops and whatever. It's just like simply being here and like meeting people. It's like, it's pretty cool, you know, and we're sort of used that everything is online now. So like part of like, let's say you go to an exhibition, you meet someone, like you just talk out of the blue to someone you don't know. Well, like it's sort of happening like on Twitter also right now. It's sort of happening on Discord also. So people are kind of open-minded with these things, I think. So it's good to just like get out there, talk to people, try to like, hey, I'm looking for a dev, and then like some collector connects you to a dev, and like some curator does it, or like you just get into a Telegram group and then you meet people. But yeah, it takes a lot of time, and you kind of look like a fool just trying to like find someone to help you on your crazy ideas as an artist. And eventually it works and you stop looking like a fool, and then this is where the good things happen, I guess.
I wanted to add quickly that the future of work is really interesting because I mean, the pandemic obviously had a great influence on that. And now we have artists working with developers, and we have all these kinds of careers, or would I say, yeah, industries kind of like collaborating and working together. Because before, I never thought a developer would be working with maybe a painter or something, but it's really nice that like the definition of STEM is like been taken to the next level, and so that's quite incredible. And I think Web3 is doing a great job at that. But of course, we've chatted a lot about the pros and cons, and I think that it's up to us. We all have like a role to play in it, and I think we just all have to stay true to ourselves, our intentions, our values. And I think that hopefully in the end, Web3 is going to get where we all want it to get. Hopefully it won't be Web4 in like 1.5 years.
Not yet.
So yeah, I figured this was so much. I enjoyed this conversation so much, and I'm hopefully gonna look back at this like interview and be like, in a couple of years, and be like, you have all your art out there, and like you never know what might happen, so it's really exciting for me to talk to you right now. And thank you for taking the time. And I'm wondering if there's some like last words that you want to give out to our audience, young creators, artists who get into the Web3 space.
I guess the main thing is just don't be scared to like reach out to people. It's like this space is really open. The people are also open. Whatever you think you might be seeing or understanding from what like the drama on crypto Twitter, whatever, just like get out there and learn and try. And of course, like do mistakes, because like it's part of the process, and like learn like what the medium is and how you can like express different things with it. I think that's like the main thing I would say to artists is just like, this is a medium just like any other, and like it's gonna be whatever artists want it to be. It's gonna be whatever other people like that are related to business or design or fashion or whatever are gonna want to do, and that's gonna be unique every single time an artist does something on its own. And just like not be scared to go to like explore different ways of like minting artwork. There's not only like OpenSea, Super Rare, Foundation, etc. Like the avenues of like working with someone, with a developer, like a team of people to do something custom, is to me like the most interesting that we can do with like this new medium.
Amazing. And where can our audience find you on your social platforms?
I'm mostly on Twitter. I hate emails. Like I'm not an email guy, so like Discord, Twitter, it works a lot. Just Figure31 on Twitter is the best place right now. Hopefully one day we're gonna have our own like social media platform, totally decentralized and etc. Or just maybe one day you'll be able to message me through an Ethereum address that's coming shortly, I imagine. So yeah, just Figure31 on Twitter, and it's all good.
Well, we're already building it, just on the side note, we're on it, like telling you it's gonna come very soon. So yeah.
soon. And I was just thinking that, oh, so Figure is the one who didn't want an email sent to him. Well, thank you so much, Figure. This has been quite an insightful, informative, fun conversation. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Joy, and thank you all for being a part of today's forum. If you want to get more involved in our community, make sure to follow us on our social platforms, IG, newcoin.nco, and our website, newcoin.org. We will have all the links in our description, as well as Figure's Twitter link as well. You can also join our private Telegram group, and you find that link as well. All the links will be put down there. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. See you next time.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. It was fun.